Is it like I should wait for her coming?
She was just asking Donna a question, I'm not really, I know she was on her way in.
Well, there being a quorum, I'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Gant is recording the meetings, anybody else?
I may do part of it anyway.
It's fine. You're doing an audio recording?
Audio.
And are you doing a pen thing or not doing it? You're not recording?
No.
Okay. And we will be going into executive session later and returning to public session following that. I think our first topic is finishing up the reply on the 40B Perkins Landing project. I had asked that the letter be distributed, which I think it has been. I reviewed any suggestions.
Excuse me, do you have copies of Debbie? She was gonna have some available, thank you.
I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't send you ahead of time. I have two tiny ones I
So,
can give you.
just a minute, 10 seconds.
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Is this 2 copies?
No, that's just one.
Did you make some more? Copies? Be nice to have each. Thank you.
After
Sorry
this,
for the
you have
confusion.
mine if you want.
No, no, I don't steal yours, Tom.
Okay, so as I said, I took a look at everything that was given to me. The letter that was sent out by Debbie is, in my opinion, in the best interest of the town. It again, people didn't, by and large, agree with my use of the word cover letter, so that's fine. But the point being that it's accompanying a very large submission. That's
Very
something
large.
they put down.
And this submission is the one that Martha sent to
Yeah.
us as the report of the
Yeah,
planning board.
so I
That
first
30
heard,
page thing.
That's a 31-page thing, and I told you, I read every page of
I
it.
first heard about this project from the chairman of our planning board maybe 6 months ago. And, you know, I've been working with her since, I make it clear when I say I've been working with her, that she's been doing 95% of the work, thank God, based on her knowledge and willingness and all of that. And with our planning board being the appropriate and knowledgeable and historical board in town that deals with these type of land use issues. The letter was drafted, one of the letters was drafted by Martha, and this is a great cliche, but put some meat on the bones kind of thing. And it's from whence it came, so it's
Oh, that's one.
really been in my opinion, seamless cooperation between the planning board and the board of selectmen. So, I'll entertain a motion to vote to approve submission of the town's reply to Mass Housing in response to the proposed Perkins Landing 40B project and authorize the chair to sign.
I move that we approve the response as proposed to the Perkins Landing 40B project and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Okay, and is there any, I know you have one or two things. This would be-
Two tiny.
This is a version that's dated November 9th.
The version is dated November 9th, and it was emailed, I think, a couple of days ago.
Second page, Mark.
If you can,
Okay,
I just
good,
gave you
good.
that one.
You gave this one as
Yeah.
well? Okay,
Yeah.
so if you added to that, it's on here.
anything further?
I want to congratulate you on good use of the word indicia.
Look that one
I
up.
used that word. I don't see that often. I like it though.
The one that you,
Somebody-
we use it a lot is we use it in, when you're forming into like a corporation, it's an addition of corporate status. So, you know, if it's with a relatively small business, they don't wanna spend money on new letterhead or new business cards or those kind of things, but, and maybe they use the step they have, but you say you need indicia that you're a corporation.
I don't know who I was talking to, but whoever it was had a statement of this said, I can tell that a lawyer was involved in this with his document.
We're doing the best we can. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. And obviously,
It's going out like that with minor edits.
Dawn and I will work with you.
Yep.
you'll work with Dawn.
Here's the
Yep, no,
stapled
take care of the
copy.
edits.
We need to be super careful about the
That's
whole
okay.
first.
This is
kind of
stapled.
whatever you
Yeah.
want to do.
No, I saw it this morning, so I just gotta add.
And I actually had it on a nice paper, but we have to put a
I have-
period in somewhere, so,
I have it.
yeah, but we'll
I have
put it
rock
on
paper.
something that looks like we're official.
Yep.
Great. Oh, now, if there's any way we can squeeze out the signature page before we leave tonight,
Sure.
so I can send it in tomorrow's, I'll do what I have to do, but tomorrow will be,
Do that.
How close are we to the deadline?
it's the 19th or something we did. And besides all the great work they did, what I repetitively requested of the planning boards was to give us time, and they were just wonderful about it. We did request an extension, but it was granted, and there's a very, we're told it's something that's done all the time, so that will be looked at substantive.
Mm-hmm.
We were hoping to meet with our building inspector on the sign bylaws. Unfortunately, he is not able to attend, and had a matter of significance that had to be taken care of. So I don't know, Kelly, I look to you as the way we just wait, we have stuff to talk about?
I do
Okay.
have some things to distribute, I just wanted to explain what they were, so that at the very least you'll have a chance to take a look, so that when we do have a more deliberative session with Glenn in the room, you'll at least have some working documents. At the last meeting, we talked about the bylaw, which we did give you a copy of at that time. In addition to that, the bylaw references the regulations, so the permit granting authorities, rules and regulations. And it specifically denotes where the Board of Selectmen has the authority to grant special permits. So I just wanted to give you another, we're gonna dive down a little bit more because this is all related. So I have prepared some copies of that information for you. So these are the regulations that are referenced in the bylaw. And so when we talk about the bylaw, I think I might have let me hand this out and then see if I have some, I think I have at least a couple of extras. One,
This is the existing?
yep, that exists right
I have-
now, some extras.
I have a copy, you can have that.
So,
I've got a
yeah.
copy.
So when we talk about the bylaw though, this is really an extension of that. So the bylaw has been approved by town meeting, was recently amended, and it does reflect some information in here. So we need to make sure that all of these are, we've connected the dots by the end of this process. At this point, you know, we could also, as a part of our deliberation, take the bylaw. One of the things that I haven't checked on is the next time we meet, I could perhaps take the new bylaw changes and see if there's any direct changes that from the bylaw change requires that we update our regulations. And those would take a vote of the board to change, I believe, because they're regulations and not the bylaw. So I would just be confirming that that's the proper process, because I haven't really been involved in that. I'm here anyway. For instance, if we've changed the scope, if we're including sandwich boards, and these regulations talk about the application process. The application for somebody to apply for a special permit would then, you know, these are the forms that we currently have. So I just want to make sure that I've gone through with Glenn to say, now that the bylaws changed, have the regulations been updated, do the forms also need to be updated? That shouldn't take very long, it's just a matter of connecting the dots. So I just wanted to give those to you for
Yeah,
reference
great.
point.
Let me ask you a question. Are we sure, and not that it's wrong, but does the Board of Selectmen promulgate regulations for that
Yes.
bylaw?
This is
Yes.
ours, yes.
It's ours,
Yeah.
no one else.
And that, I believe, is stated right in the bylaw.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of that for your reference, so you can review that as you're going through the bylaw.
I don't think I need to clarify it for you guys, but for our audience. This is the bylaw, this is the rules and regulations. We're talking about two different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are all online, right, on the
Yeah.
website?
I'm not sure if the regulations
I'm not
are.
sure about the regulations, but the bylaws, because I printed it from the
Yeah.
webpage.
Be nice, probably be useful. if-
Mhm. Well, that's part of our
Yeah.
analysis of this issue, is to make sure that the information that is available is easily accessible on the website. So what I would be doing with Glenn is going through this and saying, okay, once we make these updates, once they get
I'll
voted
get,
by
I
the
can
board,
get a copy.
let's make sure on your department webpage, all of this information is up there, it's within easy reach, and we can find it, and we put in our search criteria, so that if anybody's looking to find out, you know, where these forms are, that we'll make it as easy as possible for them to conform to the bylaw.
So the updates we were talking about before that Beth had done, those were updates to the bylaw.
Correct.
If we, for one of our town goals and objectives, decide to change the regulations, this is the document that we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yes.
And what we did at last year's town meeting was change the bylaw.
Right. That bylaw changes to town
Town
meeting
meeting,
approval.
we
Regulations,
right.
yeah, the board of,
Executive.
The one thing I know I'm gonna tell you, but the one thing I've urged from the beginning of this topic is that we all reread the bylaw itself.
Oh, yeah.
I know, you know, and just make sure there isn't anything that pops out that says, well, this was from 1882, it doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It might be fine, but I don't, I struggle with how you can do then the next step, though, haven't done that.
Right,
The one thing I don't find in here are the penalties for
It's
non-compliance.
in another place they keep saying.
It's in another place.
the other
We
place
need
that's
that
not in
too.
here is the enforcement piece,
Yeah.
right?
We need to have
Right.
that because,
I agree, I went to look for it, and again, as evidence that it is quite complex, I went to go look for it, thought it would be in one place, and it wasn't.
Yeah, it's hard to
I
find.
know, so I
This is
think we
clear.
need one-stop
Yeah.
shopping on this issue, if somebody has signage bylaw, and then we can include it in our packet that we send out to folks to the
that's what I think we
extent.
need to do.
Can you be kind enough to, even if we've already got it,
Yeah.
to email in one,
Yes,
attach
one
to one
document
email,
with everything
right, the
together.
three things, the bylaw, the regs,
Yeah.
and the enforcement section.
Yeah.
Is that the way it works for other areas besides the sign bylaw? That there are three categories, there are bylaws, there are regulations, and then enforcement is in
Yes.
another?
That's
Pretty
that's
much.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Pretty much the framework.
Yep.
Okay.
And depending on who's given the authority within the bylaw, determines who gets to do all the nitty-gritty procedural and the authorization.
So we have responsibility for these regulations, do we have any responsibility for the enforcement piece as well?
The building inspector does,
You-
under the
Yeah.
state building
That's
code,
true.
not necessarily under the Board of Selectmen though.
As
So
a
it
zoning,
depends.
as a zoning
It's very-
enforcement officer, since this is zoning bylaw, not every town's signed bylaw is zoning.
Right.
Ours is zoning, therefore zoning enforcement officer is responsible, therefore state law says it's on.
But the amounts of the penalties and that and so on, those are not part of the bylaws, aren't they?
Yes, they are, that's
They
the
are.
problem.
Yes, but it's a different
So-
section of the bylaw, it's not
So
under.
that
Different
requires
section.
town
Town
meeting
meeting.
to,
Town
if they're
zoning.
gonna be changed, but we need
As
to.
you
But we
said,
can
it's
make
not
it-
part of this bylaw,
Yeah,
it's part
let's,
of
well,
the,
we just need to get proactive on how
Yeah.
we're gonna do that in
Yeah.
case we decide there are changes that are
What
appropriate.
was that again, the enforcement, and I'm missing the fees.
The dollar amount
the
that's for the
fees.
fine?
Yeah, the enforcement fees,
Well, I remember when we were talking about
by the
making
way,
the
the fees are
amendment.
somewhat in here, in the
Yeah,
regulations.
right, but then the enforcement section will have things like, you know, after the fourth violation, it's whatever.
Right.
So the enforcement and the fines. Now, I remember when we were talking about doing this at town meeting, we had this whole extra section written up about enforcement, and then town council had said, well, it's duplicative. You've already got another section of the zoning bylaw that says what those penalties and enforcement is,
But one thing,
and so they didn't want to replicate that.
but one thing we could at least do is have a pointer.
Exactly.
That's what we need to do.
Exactly.
We don't
We
want
need
to change the law because we have this place.
But we wanna say this is
But
where
we
you can
want
find
to,
it.
that's right.
One-stop shopping, if you need to find out whether your sign conforms, if you need to file for special permit, you wanna know what the rules are, how much it costs, and if you don't conform, how much the violation is, have a complaint form all in one spot. And then we're gonna publicize
But
that.
having,
without-
but having the violation amounts in a separate bylaw make it very convenient if you go to town meeting because you want to adjust those things. You don't have to bring an entire bylaw to
And
the
vice
meeting
versa too.
Right.
and make a change.
Yeah.
You just bring that particular one.
And
So
my
that's the
understanding-
advantage of that.
The enforcement piece applies to all the different, you know, all the different
Yes,
zones.
exactly.
And so one of the options that we might have is to make a different schedule for violations of sign bylaws versus construction permits and so on.
Yeah, not all things are
Right.
created
We're not
equal
there
as far
yet,
as-
Well,
but those are the
that's
questions.
That's sort of my vision for at the end of this process, we're gonna be, you know, heading into town meeting, thinking about what portion of this may or may not need to be changed, whether it's this year or next. But those are exactly the recommendations that we'd be looking to make
Okay.
before we get into our next step meeting.
The last time that we discussed this, I was not there, but having looked at the minutes, edited the minutes, one of the follow-up items was to put a listing together of the businesses and the signs that are in town. Who is that assigned to? Is that underway?
Okay, I have a list of all the businesses right here, and we have labels ready to go once we identify, so this doesn't include signage, it just includes all of the businesses.
You've heard enough already?
Oh, this is so stimulating. Thank you. Want to leave now? So I have a list, we prepared a list, I worked with the assessor's office to get a list. This is a very first draft, I'm open to revisions and suggestions. I don't even have to, I just put it together. Glenn hasn't even had a chance. My focus of this is really to try to really sort of provide information and put a little polish into saying, listen, we're all trying to make the town look better. So there's different ways and styles to do that. I just put this on paper so that we'd have something to work with. But what I was thinking is that we need to convey that we're not out there trying to catch people in the act of non-conformance, that we're really looking to educate people and try to inform them of what the rules are so that we can minimize any misunderstanding and basically try to attempt to deal with this issue in a more proactive way. So there's no need, you don't have to give me specific feedback right now. If you have specific changes you'd like to make, I'm more than willing to incorporate those before the next meeting.
Kelly, the one thing I would put in is just a note to say that, included is a copy of the sign bylaws, the sign regulations, and the enforcement, fees
Yes.
and enforcement.
Yeah.
Or application and enforcement fees, and whatever the language is on that. But I think you should put that in there to say those three pieces are there. I know at least one person who, and I have to admit, I've done this in the past, I've gone in, looked at the sign bylaws, that's it. And yet the regulations may be very helpful, and some people may not even know they're there.
It may be helpful too to highlight what the changes are, because they're probably assuming they're in conformance.
I can't imagine there's a lot of people that really understand the rules and regulations and that they even exist. Everybody talks about the bylaw, and that's what people are gonna start looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
The rules and regulations are the process.
Exactly.
Right.
That's why it's not a law, it's just
I
the process in order to, where are the forms and things like that. If someone wants to do something with the sign, they see something in the sign bylaw and they want to do it, they have to apply for a change, they come into town and say, I need to do this, how do I do it? And then they get the rules and regulations. So I'm not sure that the rules and not having rules and regulations should not affect somebody's ability to figure out what kind of sign they're allowed to put in a particular place. All of that is in the law, that's what people.
All that is in the bylaw.
In the bylaw,
Yeah.
right. The process is the regulation side.
Yeah.
And that's, it's important, but it's only important if you need to do something about the sign bylaw that's different from what you're allowed to do. And because we're trying to make this as friendly as possible, can I make a further suggestion as to what why don't we hold off on the enforcement? Because I don't think that in the letter here, we're trying to encourage the enforcement. If somebody has any questions about how you enforce it, well, we've given the answers. But rather than trying to tell
Maybe that
people,
ought, maybe
by
that
the
ought to
way-
be, maybe that ought to be the second letter when they don't take the
I
sign.
think that's an
I guess-
excellent suggestion.
I think there
Don't put it
needs-
in their face to start. We're
Right,
trying to
yeah.
get friendliness.
Yeah, I realize friendliness, but I also think that it's part of what you need to understand if you are, if you have a sign out. And if you have a sign out that is not in compliance and you're wondering what the implications are, you think, oh my goodness, I look at the sign bylaw and realize my sandwich sign is no longer allowed. What does it cost me? And I think we should put that in. We don't have to make a big deal of it, but I think we need to put the full packet available. That, or we assemble them all in one place and put a pointer on the website for where, all these pieces are, and they can find them on the website, so it's not in their hand. But then when they go look, they'll see, oh, there's 3 pieces to this, and they should look at all of them, in my opinion.
Now, you mentioned the meeting notes. And when I read those meeting notes, I was surprised to see the entry that said, we're gonna make an inventory of all the signs in the town. I actually don't remember that at the meeting, I didn't go back
Glenn
to
said
that, so
it.
to speak.
Glenn
Was
specifically said it.
Yeah, I double checked with
remember
Debbie
saying
and she
it.
said it was on
So
record.
that he is gonna do that?
No, he had mentioned, he brought it up in the meeting, he specifically said those words,
That
Okay.
we should, or
that
what?
it should be done.
It
Oh,
should be
it should
done, not
be done.
he would
That's
do
what
it.
And that was my question, I don't know who was
suggested.
doing
Right,
that.
and-
Or
He
how.
didn't
Ah,
specify,
okay.
but he said
Or
that
how. I know,
to get started.
we talked about, is there a way that we could research, what signs have been approved through special permit? And that's where we said, well, in the future, we can look that up in our board docs, and see where the special permits were. But I'm not sure that we're recording that information
We
in
are.
an easily accessible database with,
Recorded but not easily
Downstairs.
accessible, I
Right.
think is the operative.
so I didn't get to delve into that too much with him, but,
How
I'll
large
have
an
to ask him.
undertaking is that then? I mean, is it worth doing, or are we looking for what seem to be the problem areas and
Should
just
that-
creating a
Can
lot
that
of
be a
work?
question that we discuss with him?
I said the other day when we talked about it,
Does
that
it-
I believe that if you concentrate on Main Street and South Main Street, you're gonna take care of 95% of the problem.
But I
But
think it
you
would be
gotta be fair.
appropriate
You
to
gotta
Other
be
than
have
for the
special
Sunoco station.
permits.
The question that brought that up,
The
Lynn,
inventory of
was,
special permits, I think we should have readily available, because that's one where somebody is non-conforming.
right,
Why are you not conforming? I have a special permit. Oh, yes, there it is. So those things, they should be, and I know Glenn's got all of them. I'm not sure.
he said he has,
feels,
he does
well,
not have them
but he
to pull
should
out.
have them.
There's no listing of all the special permits we can look at.
Yeah, he
He said he
indicated,
could pull it out, but
he
he
said he's got them, but it would be difficult
it
for
would give
him.
him
Yeah.
just time to pull it
now
out.
that I can believe he may have asked, when he was asking for
Yeah.
the inventory,
Yeah.
that he may have been asking for that.
Yeah.
Because trying to come up with the individual inventories on every business or private property, whatever, I think it's a fool's errand to try to go catch all those things.
I would
And I'm
agree
not
with you
sure
on
it's
the
gonna help anything.
non-conforming, because if then we're going to start
Non-conforming, I'm with
to,
you on.
yeah, because then if we're gonna start to do enforcement, we should not go after businesses who are
We can't.
non-conforming, but whom we said they could be non-conforming.
By the way, here's my permit
Right,
that I
that's going
got
to
2
look
years
very
ago, 10 years
foolish, and it'll
ago.
be aggravating to the business, so.
Right, I think that would be a more appropriate thing than the way, at least the minutes are written that indicate, even if Glenn asked for everything, it's up to us what we want to do. I don't think we should try to inventory every sign in the town. Because remember, somebody has the right to put a sign out in front of their house, and they might do it 2 weeks after we do the inventory, and our inventory is out of date. So I agree, non-conforming signs, and somebody wants to go after the grandfather per se, you can, but I think trying to actually go after that, and then you wind up some odd.
I think this is really helpful too to the other
Non-conforming.
businesses, so that they understand why there is probably a non-conforming sign, a couple of businesses down, and why they can't do it, to be able to speak to that.
My question would be, and this is one for you, Kelly, as manager of that department. Is that something that Diane could, if she put in half an hour, or preferably an hour a week, over the course of a number of weeks, she could go through the records and look back at all the non-conforming? It's gonna take time
That's-
probably to flip through the
Yeah,
records.
and that's where I don't wanna paint Glenn into a corner, I'd prefer to have him at the meeting where we can discuss that.
That's fine, but I'm just saying, I think there's a way to do it. It
There's a
doesn't
way
have
to
be
do
done at
anything with
once.
enough money and resources, but I don't
But
wanna
I'm saying a
overcommit
lit-
it without him being here to say what he can and
If it
can't
takes
do.
6 months,
Yeah.
but it gets done, I think we agree that it's something probably worth doing. We can talk about it when Glenn is here.
Right, and exactly what the subset is that we're talking
Yeah.
about, because I think to
Yep.
Dick's point, just having a list of signs, it's outdated as soon as we.
No, I don't think we need all
I
signs.
think we're kind of in agreement on that, that
Yeah,
a list like that would not be very productive, a full list.
well, it'd be large and unmanageable, and for those who are in conformance, so what?
So what you were suggesting though is that we would have an ongoing list of non-conforming but basically grandfathered signs.
So that all the
Or
special
special
permits.
permit, there's 2 kinds.
Right,
The
right.
grandfathered ones and the special permits.
permit.
And I think the special permits are the ones that, well,
I would hope that even if, even go back a few years, that there's some way that we've been able to capture that data within our existing
Bermuda should
systems.
have that for the last 5 years.
So, and perhaps,
Because we had the
I'm
permitting
hoping that we
system,
do,
it
yeah.
collected all the stuff, so you can go find
Yeah,
that. But you
right.
can't find something
before
from
that.
1988 or something
And
like
that,
that.
Yeah, we'll have to decide.
So
how we wanna
I'm
go
not
about it.
disagreeing with you at all, I
Yeah.
just, I don't wanna overextend.
No, I don't wanna try, this
Our
is not a
resources
thunderclap
without-
process, even
Yeah.
if it takes months to do,
I
but
agree.
we're committed to moving
Yeah.
forward. This is just a first step, it's
Yeah.
gonna take time to get everything
Yeah,
else.
plus we
together.
also have alternate inspectors, I mean, I've talked with Glenn about that, and he said, okay, well, let's just figure out when we use that resource, because, you know, there's only so much, so many available resources.
You can deputize some of us.
There you go, that's okay.
I would agree with John that in a nice way, I would incorporate the enforcement piece or what the penalties are, because I think if someone got a letter that said, oh, the bylaws have been updated, blah, 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 it's just gonna go right into the trash, and they're not gonna
Yeah.
understand this is part of an information campaign that also talks about what the enforcement.
So I did attempt, I
component
did start to do that at some point, but then I realized I only had 2 pieces and I didn't wanna do a paragraph with some bullets for 2 things. So, but that's easy enough to be incorporated.
Now you've got 3 pieces.
Yeah, the enforcement piece, yeah. And we can put in there whatever you'd like. Honestly, I think if we're gonna do it, we should just do it right and put in whatever information we have. And if they decide to throw that away, then at least we know who's getting this package. And when somebody says, well, I didn't know that was a law, we can say, well, you know, we did try to provide outreach to folks and.
I
you
do
know,
think if they see dollar signs in here,
Yeah, it'll have a little bit
they'll
more.
be like, what is this?
I
What?
think it opens things up for people who kind of suspect that they may not be in compliance. I'm thinking of a couple in particular.
Yeah,
And it'll make it a little bit clearer what the case is. And if somebody does take the letter and throw it away anyway, as they say, ignorance of law is no
No.
excuse, but
Yeah.
we're giving them every chance. And it certainly
I mean, that's
wouldn't
the
be
hope.
denied that we had attempted to reach out to everybody, whether they.
right. I mean, our hope is to reach as
Respond.
many as people as possible that are receptive, and if they're not, then when we have to go back and start enforcement, that we can feel like we did the best to our ability to inform and educate people
Was
first.
there a time frame when we were looking to get this out?
Well, I just thought that this would be a good, when Glenn gets back, I can talk with him about this tomorrow so that we're prepared for the next time we meet to give you an update and to wrap this up, so we have an
So-
action plan.
I
The
mean,
next
there'll be an
meeting.
ongoing sort of, at some point after this goes out, the question's going to be, okay, what do we do about those that are still non-conforming?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I suspect there'll be some cases where folks will say, well, I'll wait till they knock on my door.
Right.
And the question is, how and when are we gonna wanna knock on the door?
And you're right, that's gonna be a little bit of a process, so the sooner we
Yeah.
get this out to start that,
Yeah.
because it's not.
Yeah, give them some time with this, because
Yeah.
folks may need to make plans and everything else.
Just a minor, it's a technical question, through the chair, I didn't know, should we have the chairman of the board sign the letter? Should we have it be from me and the, building inspector? I was thinking not the building inspector, because we're keeping that in our back pocket for the next level. But it could go either way, depending on, Mark, how you feel about whether or not you want it to be sort of an inclusive from me and the board, or if
Well, I think it
matters.
definitely should be from you, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to also be on it if you want to.
I just,
I think 5
Perspective.
signatures on it are the best thing you can do. We've all signed up for it, this is a team effort, so to speak, the whole board is in, you know, the chair signing, it could be the same message. But the message of that many more signatures, I think, indicates that, yeah, we're all on board and we really want this
Just
thing
put
to
them in a
happen.
line down here.
yeah,
I do
we'll
think.
probably do 2 pages anyway, because if
Well,
we
this
do a list and.
CC, Glenn Closey, building inspector, I think is good to put there, even if it's
Oh.
not from him.
Oh, exactly,
But that indicates that there's a
there's
process.
follow-up, yep.
Zoning
can add some
enforcement
lines.
officer, not building inspector.
That's a good
It's
point.
just the
Zoning
tinkering
enforcement, that's a
stuff
good
if
point.
you can
Perfect,
read it.
yep, that's exactly, I just wanted to get it
Did
on
you
my
get Dick's,
so that's
Dick's
helpful.
point on that?
That we're gonna put,
Zoning
I'm sorry, what was
enforcement
it?
officer.
Oh, yeah,
For this role, building
Yeah.
doesn't,
No, you're absolutely right. That's
Yeah.
a good call.
And I do agree with the selectmen being on here, since it's one of our 9 objectives.
Yep.
so.
yep,
Oh, that's a good
5,
call,
and
too.
some bullets
Good.
that shows what's in the package. Okay, that's great. I'll do a revised version of this, and then we'll have that all ready and prepped to go, so that when, I assume, do you remember when our next, work session is?
December 13th.
Does that
Yeah.
sound good?
And,
Make sure that he can come,
Yes,
Mhm.
before we finalize it, yeah. He did want to,
if somehow he can't, we can shift
can
around it or
finagle.
something.
Yep.
And can he see the letter ahead of time, so when we?
no, I'm sharing this with him, I'm gonna make
Oh,
these
great.
changes, give it to him, and and, so that we can hit the ground running and be off.
Can I make a suggestion? You said it's gonna go to 2 pages. I prefer not to see it go to 2 pages, because a lot of people that read just the first page and make their decision about it, they say, oh, look at this big packet of stuff.
Okay,
If you squeeze the line spacing, that's all
Sure.
stuff that you know how
Okay.
to do. Get it on 1 page, then you could read this and get the whole thing,
Okay.
whether you choose to pay attention or
Okay.
not, but it becomes a readable piece without the threat of 10 more pages to read.
I was just worried about not having enough space for everyone's signature.
Oh, I think you can squeeze it in, we can write small if
Okay.
necessary,
Okay.
but
I'll just change the marker. Okay.
You can abbreviate Shenanigans that little.
Yeah.
Shwanamedi. How do you say that 3 times
I
fast?
said it's actually
Shwanamedi?
Shenanigans.
Spell it.
I didn't go back to
when I gave
chief
Three
my,
astronomer.
when I gave my talk at Essex Heritage,
Oh,
I
yeah.
talked about
How did that
and
go?
I said the word Shunembi 3 times, and it never came out the same.
Right?
And I
But
said,
no one questioned?
and so my joke was that finally the town voted to change their name to Topsfield, with people asking directions and then relieved.
How do I get
Well,
to the
New Meadows came before that,
Shwanamedi
didn't
Fair?
New Meadows came
New
before
Meadows was
Topsfield.
the original name. And then the
Jeez.
feeling was that the historians believed that it was a mispronunciation by the Native Americans who were in the area of New Meadows that came up with Shunemedi, the thing Mark said. And
That was a mispronunciation.
and
New Meadows.
that it ended up, I guess people were kind of impressed by it. It was different than, there were New Meadows in other towns, so we'll have our own name. And that's what happened for a while.
Thank goodness the fairgrounds came to their senses when they
Yeah, it was
came
early
up with the name of
1800s,
the
they
fair.
changed the name finally, I
Whew.
think. But it
Oh.
was kind of funny.
Anything further on this topic? I am going to rearrange our agenda slightly. It'll flow better if we talk about minutes now.
Sure. Okay, so the first packet that you have is the working session for August 16th.
Feel free to make an appropriate motion.
You wanna make a motion, or you wanna talk about?
Move to approve the minutes for Thursday, working session minutes from the Board of Selectmen, Thursday, August 16th,
We have a second.
2018.
Second?
Second. So, I have a change, number 2, administrators and staff.
Wait, I'm sorry, where are you?
Yeah, I don't know the pages here. In our packet, it's page 6, is that? 6.
Okay, the category that it's under, because these don't have page
It's
numbers.
under, it's very simple. Town financial policies, it says the Collins Center that did in 2017. The work was done in 2016, they did their final report in 2016, and then they did a couple of additional reports in 17. But it should, instead of in 2017, it should be 2016 for that.
Finalized in 2017? I don't know.
Well, if you want, you can change it to they finalized it before that, because we got the final report. The Board of Selectmen did, I wasn't on the board at the time. The board got the final reports that dated,
August
in
of
16.
2017 was when the report was handed off to us with the financial policies,
final, I don't care.
which is different from
Oh,
the.
The way it said it was developed with, it was, so finalized in 17, leave it that way.
Okay.
Okay, and then, it just, reading wise, the minutes don't have pages. This would be on, I don't know.
Is it
It's talking
still
about
goals?
rental, it's talking about the town hall.
The rental, okay.
Town hall and the rental, where it talks about 150 people. Just before that, it has tables and chairs
That's just last one.
Yep.
are
Utilized.
utilized.
If tables
Just
and
put the word,
chairs.
there's no
what
verb
are.
in there, just are utilized. So That's
Okay,
all I have.
okay. Do we need to say as amended?
As amended, that was in my motion, you didn't hear it?
I did, but you anticipated it.
Anything further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
I abstained. I was not there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the next one is the regular meeting on October 29th.
Move to approve minutes from the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday, October 29th, 2018.
Second. Where it talks about the change of store hours for Gil's Grocery, it says, the way it reads, it sounds like, the way it should say is beverages on Sundays, 2, and then a colon. You know,
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying.
because otherwise it's.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
The store hours, so it'll say wine and malt beverages on Sunday to 10 a.m. - 1 p.m. So we're changing it to that set of hours.
Two,
Okay.
What's going?
right here,
Right here.
change of hours,
So instead of from Sundays,
two, okay.
2,
Two,
colon, and then
got it.
Or you could even put a hyphen in.
Or just a
Okay.
hyphen.
A hyphen would make it even easier than a colon.
Okay.
Same idea.
And I will add in, because I realized I left it off on the population increase, we actually did specify the number. So
Oh,
the
good.
population estimate of Topsfield of 6673 as of July 10. So I was not gonna put it in unless.
Anything further on this one?
so this is as amended.
As amended.
Yeah, this is-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anything further? 5 minutes? Are we pretty close to time?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both, I really appreciate it. It's really great work. Before we go into executive session, I wanted to bring forward an item that came up very recently, and I don't know what to do with it, and maybe someone could give me some direction. So I received a letter from Dawn Craig, who lives on Candlewood Drive. I want to read it quickly, but the main reason I'm bringing it up is that, at least from this perspective, it references safety of children. So my reason for writing is a concern for the safety of several small children on Candlewood Drive across from my home at number 49. There is in place an easement across the street for access to utilities, that is power line service access and access to a pump house. And I'm just reading, I don't know if it's true or not true, owned by Richard Skeffington. The power lines have been rerouted to another area, and the pump house which served Mr. Skeffington's private water service has been replaced by a town water system. The problem that exists is that the pump house has essentially crumbled, and the well is now uncovered and a hazard to the children that live in the home through which the easement passes, the house next door, and any other children that might walk through the woods. It's my understanding the taxes were not paid, and the property on which the well sits in the town now owns that lot. Again, I don't know if that's true or not. I have not had the opportunity to go to the town hall to verify this as fact. The most serious concern is the safety of the children. There is a responsibility to maintain that easement and of course correct the dangerous hazard. It is also my understanding that the Board of Selectmen is the authority to which this notification must be sent. I was advised that I should send you this correspondence in this manner as an accepted process. I certainly hope that's the case. So anybody tell me where this goes to look at whether it's real, whether it's serious, whether it's...
My first thought would be that I would be talking with Greg Crum about it, because he's very familiar with the property and with the project, so I could certainly have him take a look and verify some of the information, and then I can report back to the board or see if he has any suggestion.
Yeah, and obviously depending on how acute this is in the view of professionals who assess these things.
Yeah, yeah.
If there's in fact a serious threat to kids, we need to do something.
Yeah, why don't I refer this to Greg and follow up with the board to let you know,
Okay, and then you
What the
put
next
that
steps
on the
are?
next regular meeting
yeah,
agenda.
so we can give an update.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll entertain a roll call vote to enter into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsections 21A, under exemption number 2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically to discuss and negotiate the town administrator's employment agreement. Since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the governor's bargaining position, the board will return to regular open session, and I would add that that open session will be in the selectmen's.
Yes.
Where are we doing the
Is
training?
board training a regular meeting of
Well,
ours?
we posted it just
Yeah.
in case it's viewed
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. But where's it going to be?
In our chamber.
In our
It's
regular
going
chamber.
to be in the regular, okay.
So when we move into, can we handle it, or need to put a sign on this door that says recess to
Yep.
selectmen's room, whatever we're calling it.
Okay.
Actually, it's a road number on it, if we remember it.
So,
So that's a motion, I will second that.
I need the motion.
So
Did we-
moved.
I will,
so we got a motion from Lynn, we got a second
Second,
from
yeah.
Dick, and roll
so,
call.
so just a quick discussion though. So we're coming back at 6 o'clock for regular session, and the only subject that we will be involved with in that open session is board docs.
We're
Is
coming
it at
back at
6?
some time, I don't wanna specify
Oh,
the time.
Okay,
It may be as late as 6 o'clock.
oh,
I don't-
that's
it
a
might be
I
10
thought
or
we were
6.
dependent upon the person
language.
The
doing
board
it.
does, but in terms of.
I talked to her in
We're
Debbie's
coming back,
office.
I'm sorry, we're coming back, the main point is, the only purpose of it would be to do the board doc work. We're not gonna discuss
other
we're not
decision.
gonna deliberate
That's right.
anything else.
No other
Nothing else.
deliberations.
Correct.
Preserve whatever rights I have by law as chair. I have no plans to do anything else, but
Yes,
I
yes,
don't think it needed to be stated to that extent.
the intent, right. Yes,
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
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 And I agree.
Thank you, the public.
And I don't think we have to come back here to go to.
That's why I flipped
No.
around the minutes
It's
thing,
a-
Yeah.
so we didn't have to do that.
I mean, we can close it out over there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can
That's
move
what
while we're
yeah.
in executive. Oh, I see what you're saying, we'll be fine to close the whole meeting.
We can just roll over.
Let's write this out, I think a big flow chart would help.
There
I think
ain't
we should
enough
try to
wall
do
for
it
a
in the
float.
elevator, and then we can go
In
up
the
and down.
elevator, chart.
Boy, the selectmen's really going down.
What other
There
regulations?
isn't enough wall space for an order chart.
Oh, we're
So
still
just so,
recording?
can you just,
yeah.
yeah, you can do that, thank you. And somehow we gotta remember
This
to
time.
add to that sign when we.
Yeah, I'll just make up another one.
Thanks, Debbie.